Tonight, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Serious questions over security lapses as America reels from shocking political violence.
You have an open area within such a short distance, a rooftop that was unsecured. That's a problem.
The new calls for unity in a country deeply divided.
An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation.
And what does it mean for the presidential race?
There's going to be a rush of sympathy for the former president
as Trump gears up for the Republican National Convention.
This man just got shot, and he's raising his fist, and he's ready to keep going.
Plus, thousands of Canadians in Labrador hoping for a break.
What we have to do is pray that this crisis will be over.
Cautious optimism tonight amid some positive signs.
There is no significant growth in the size of the fire.
CTV National News with Heather Butts. Reporting tonight, Todd Vanderhayden.
Good evening. The United States reeling from the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. The FBI calling it an act of domestic terrorism. It was also a major security failure, that a sniper could have been that close to the former president and fired multiple times. Meantime, Trump himself arriving in Milwaukee, Wisconsin tonight ahead of the Republican National Convention, which begins tomorrow. And President Biden confirming he has spoken personally to Donald Trump. Biden gave an Oval Office address trying to reassure the country and calling for unity. But the political violence is shaking up a presidential race that was already very divided. Our coverage begins with our Washington bureau chief, Joy Malbon.
Take a look at what happened.
When shots rang out after that terrifying attempt to kill Donald Trump at a Pennsylvania rally, the former president bloodied but unbowed, taking that image to his convention, saying he won't let the shooter scare him away from being crowned as the Republican presidential nominee in Milwaukee, urging Americans on social media to stand united and show our true character.
My fellow Americans.
In a rare Oval Office address, President Joe Biden's age suddenly not the focus as he calls for calm.
Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, a God forbid, a killing field. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box.
The FBI identified the would-be assassin as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. He used an assault rifle, perched on a roof, taking aim. They found bomb-making material in his car and home. Classmates called him a loner.
He was always bullied every day. He was just an outcast.
A registered Republican who worked in a nursing home, Crooks had no criminal history or mental health issues. So why would he want to shoot Trump? The FBI trying to make sense of how this could happen. Witnesses say warning signs were missed.
We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle.
How a man armed with a rifle got on a roof so close to the president? The Secret Service facing serious questions tonight.
And coverage fell through the cracks, which means nobody ensured that coverage was actually in place, or it wasn't built into the overall plan at all.
2 people were seriously injured and killed in the crossfire. A firefighter, father of 2 young girls, remembered.
Corey died a hero. The Corey dove on his family to protect them last night at this rally. Corey was the very best of us.
The shock of political violence has lawmakers from both sides calling for unity, but no one expects civility to last long. The FBI investigating this as domestic terror, confident the shooter acted alone. Todd?
CTV's Joy Malbon tonight. And how about those questions on a sniper being able to get so close to Trump and why the shooter wasn't stopped beforehand? We spoke to a former FBI agent about how vulnerable politicians can be at these sorts of campaign rallies and what was missed, this time by law enforcement.
This was an open-air venue, and open-air venues are harder to protect because of the possibility of a shooter being outside the protected area. I think that you'll probably see less open area type venues until the election here. But one would think that in the doing the site survey before this event, that would have been identified as a potential problem area, and people should have been posted on there, in my opinion.
Well, the assassination attempt coming on the eve of the Republican Party's national convention, where Trump will become the official nominee for president. There are less than 4 months to go until the election, and a race that was already very volatile is now even more so. With more on the political fallout and what some call a game-changing moment, here's CTV's Jeremy Sharon.
Already deemed by many as a defining moment, in the midst of the chaos, surrounded by the Secret Service, just moments after being hit by a bullet, the former president, with blood on his face, stopped to put his fist in the air and rally his supporters. This is the shot, and what many believe could be a pivotal political turning point in the country.
I think world history, to be honest with you, that's how iconic this image was. This man just got shot, and he's raising his fist, and he's ready to keep going.
A moment likely to come with immediate political impacts. A former president who survives an assassination, an attack on democracy in the midst of an election campaign.
He's fighting for me. He has the strength to fight for me. It's very powerful. And even at a subconscious level, it could absolutely influence those swing voters.
Many pollsters are predicting a boost for the Trump campaign in a race that has already seen him become the frontrunner.
The voters who are pessimistic about the direction of the country are much more likely to support Donald Trump. And so I think in a couple of ways it will help his campaign.
But in a country deeply divided, there is some belief, too, that for the American electorate, this may have been a wake-up call.
They're seeing a chaotic system right now, and they are looking for who is going to bring normalcy to our lives, who is going to bring normalcy to leadership, who is going to bring normalcy to the White House.
Now, this weekend has been anything but normal, and no matter how it impacts the presidential race, it's a moment in American history that will never be forgotten. Todd?
CTV's Jeremy Sharon. And Donald Trump took a call from our prime minister today. Justin Trudeau and Trump were in office at the same time. Trudeau condemned yesterday's appalling assassination attempt in the call, reiterating there is no place for political violence. He also wished Trump well and offered his condolences to the victims. Well, the United States has a long and dark history of political violence, Trump becoming the latest president targeted by an assassin. The first president to be assassinated was Abraham Lincoln, shot dead in a theater in 1865. James Garfield was shot in a Washington train station in 1881, later died of his wounds. William McKinley, shot in Buffalo, New York in 1901 at point-blank range after a speech. He died 8 days later. Theodore Roosevelt, shot in 1912. Defiant, he gave a campaign speech anyway. His chest wound wasn't too serious. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt was targeted, but the shooter missed, killing the mayor of Chicago instead. Dallas, November 1963, John F. Kennedy killed by a sniper while he was traveling in an open-air motorcade. And Ronald Reagan, shot and seriously wounded in 1981 outside of a hotel in Washington where he had just given a speech. All right, for more analysis, Republican strategist Corey Crowley joins me now from Virginia. And Corey, your party's national convention is tomorrow. What do you think this attempt on Trump's life is going to mean for his campaign?
Well, I think, first of all, it's going to add a tremendous amount of energy to the convention. Otherwise, these conventions tend to be pretty dull events. The big ticket item in this one would have been the announcement of a vice president. That'll still be something that everybody's looking to see. Who does Trump pick? Will he surprise us? Will it be one of the known folks that he's been looking at? But really, it is now going to become a comparison, even stronger than it has before, between the dullness of Joe Biden as a candidate and the vigor of Donald Trump. The way that he stood back up from that shot to his ear, got up, pumped his fist in the air is already an iconic moment. But then couple it with the fact that really the last president this happened to was an American icon, a Republican icon in Ronald Reagan. I would look for a lot of draws of similarity at the convention this week between Trump and Reagan.
What does it mean, bigger picture, for the presidential election, Corey?
Well, I think big picture, it solidifies more people for Trump. Todd, you and I have talked about this quite a lot before, but there is not a lot of undecided voters in the United States, but there are people who ride on the fence about whether Donald Trump is their guy or not. And when you look at the way he handled that situation, when you look at the way he said, people wanted me to delay the convention, but we're going to go ahead and move forward on schedule, will not be stopped. And then you contrast that with the way President Biden has reacted to all of this, still very unenergetic, unpassionate speeches given from the White House, none of the hellfire and brimstone that you'd expect from a president of the United States saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this, we're going to solve the problems, and everyone is safe. None of that from Biden.
Do you think it's going to change Trump in any way in terms of the way he does politics, his tone, his language, Corey?
Well, I think that it's probably quite a humbling experience to be shot at, never having experienced it myself. But I got to think that he, at least for a moment, was in touch with his own mortality. And that changes someone's thinking. But I think we all know Donald Trump well enough to know that he's going to take this to be less of a threat and more of a mandate, that maybe God himself has saved him for some reason, and that he can now go forward with all the strength and gusto that he already had and double it.
Republican strategist Corey Crowley. Thank you, Corey, for that. And for more on the assassination attempt on Donald Trump and the political fallout, you can visit our website, ctvnews.ca. A glimmer of hope tonight after a challenging few days for residents of Labrador City, displaced because of a major wildfire in the province. The Premier with some welcome news on the fight and the promise of funds for those who need it. CTV's Christina Tenaglia has the latest.
We have some good news today.
The Premier began his news conference on an optimistic note.
There is no significant growth in the size of the fire that is just northwest of Lab City.
A wildfire that was contained earlier in the week spread after a change of weather, forcing 9,500 locals to evacuate.
Praise orders for this crisis.
Including Hazel Flores Gasita and her family of 5. Packing up late Friday while a cloudy inferno brewed.
And I told them, I don't want to scare you guys, but we have to take this seriously.
The family is staying at the cabin of a friend in Churchill Falls, about 250 kilometers from Lab City.
We're very lucky with that.
It's almost halfway to Happy Valley Goose Bay, where the town's mayor says 4,000 evacuees have registered at various facilities.
We've been able to accommodate everybody so far.
The focus today, containing the blaze, with close to a dozen water bombers attacking from the east and west.
So this should be an excellent day of suppression, an excellent day of mitigation.
A glimmer of hope, but a reminder from the city's mayor that the emergency status remains.
People are talking about coming back to town and asking all kinds of questions. Their phones are lit up. It's still a mandatory evacuation for the town of Labrador City.
Nearby, in the town of Wabush, residents are still standing by.
Heaven only knows what's going to play out over the next couple of days, so be prepared.
Fleeing a fire. It's easy to feel unprepared, but the kindness of others has brought, for many, a sense of ease.
It's a story that will be told for a long time from now, because the people have really shown up to help their neighbors.
Now what we do have to do is pray that this crisis will be over. Maybe in a couple of days we might see our home back.
While evacuees wait to return home, more help is on the way. Premier Furey announcing today a financial support program similar to the one launched during Hurricane Fiona in 2022. He says details will be announced within a day. Todd.
CTV's Christina Tenaglia. Canada's premiers will be meeting in Halifax this week. Top of the agenda, frustration about the Trudeau government's overreaching into areas of provincial jurisdiction like housing, healthcare and education. CTV's Colton Prail reports.
As Canada's premiers descend on Halifax, they're looking for new ways to better cooperate with each other while asking the federal government to butt out. The provincial leaders panning what they say have been unilateral policy decisions by Ottawa that often step into provincial jurisdiction. Ontario taking issue with housing deals made directly with municipalities that are dependent on increased density. Alberta is threatening to pull out of the federal dental care program, while Newfoundland plans to take the federal government to court over equalization payments it says put the province at a disadvantage, a case British Columbia is following closely.
The federal government are underwriting these programs at this point, but they do have implications with respect to shared cost effects down the road. And so the premiers are looking at all of that warily.
Also on the agenda, a need for increased spending in healthcare, electrical infrastructure, and upping green energy production, with some provinces focused on hydrogen extraction, others hoping to work together on small modular nuclear reactors. And in the back of every leader's mind, yesterday's shooting involving former President Donald Trump. His return to the White House would have a significant impact on exports south of the border. Colton Prale, CTV News, Halifax.
And some sad news from Hollywood today. A television icon from the 1990s, Shannon Doherty, has died. She's best known for her starring roles on the shows Beverly Hills 90210 and Charmed.
The power of three will set us free.
The drama didn't always stay on screen, though. There were stories about fighting on set with castmates. In 2015, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was very public about her battle, hoping to inspire others. Shannon Doherty was 53 years old. All right, when we come back.
This helps only the airlines, not the public.
When complaints about bad air travel disappear into thin air. There are more than 70,000 official complaints against Canada's airline industry. Poor customer service, delayed flights. There's also a huge backlog of complaints, which fuels even more frustration. Here's a twist, though. Once a complaint has been resolved, passengers are supposed to keep quiet about it. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver explains.
Every year, tens of thousands of air passengers file complaints seeking compensation after a negative flying experience. But those decisions are supposed to be kept secret.
The new statute, which provides for, I would say, special treatment for the airline industry, is somewhat unusual.
In 2023, Ottawa passed a new Air Passengers Bill of Rights that requires all matters related to the process of dealing with a complaint to be kept confidential unless the complainant and the carrier otherwise agree.
Our position is that this provision is unconstitutional.
Air passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács says that provision should be removed.
We encourage passengers to post those decisions publicly because the public needs to know, and the public has a right to know under the Charter. We don't recognize the validity of legislation that purports to curtail freedom of expression in Canada.
And that's exactly what one passenger did, posting their CTA decision on a Facebook page dedicated to air passenger rights. It was quickly deleted at the request of the CTA. The quasi-judicial regulator says the law is clear. The full decision and its context shouldn't be shared.
The agency is required by law to publish the key information about air travel complaint decisions that are relevant to passengers, and we do this.
While that information is useful, aviation analysts are pushing Canada to follow Europe, where far more data is available, taking some power away from the airlines.
People want to know, are the airlines being fast and loose with their interpretation of regulations? I think personally that the legislation and the regulations should be changed.
The Canadian Transportation Agency says it publishes enough information on its website for passengers to be properly informed, including the flight number, the travel date, and whether compensation or a refund was required. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
All right, still ahead for us. A fixture at Wimbledon makes a royal return. The Princess of Wales brought one of her biggest fans to watch the men's Wimbledon final, marking just her second public appearance since her cancer diagnosis and surgery. Kate and her daughter, Princess Charlotte, took their seats in the front row of the royal box, greeted by a standing ovation.
There
And Carlos Alcaraz of Spain conquered Novak Djokovic of Serbia again in a rematch of last year's Wimbledon final, this time winning in 3 sets. Kate presented the trophy to Alcaraz. And Spain also reigned supreme on the soccer pitch in a dramatic Euro final.
What thought about Cucurella? 2-1 Spain!
Spain edged out England 2-1, scoring the winner late in regulation to claim a record 4th championship. Heartbreak for England, though, finishing runner-up for the 2nd straight time. All right, after the break, how slow can you go? The leisurely stroll with a tortoise. We'll be right back. Finally for us tonight, the tortoise in British Columbia making quite a name for himself. You might call it a slow walk to fame and friendship. CTV's Adam Sawatsky has more from Vancouver.
Oh my God, I'm from Australia and I think this is amazing.
Jan Stewart has travelled here from Australia to photograph as many creatures as she can.
I can't believe it, that you've got this walking up the street.
Before we introduce you to who's walking, if you asked Jan to rank all the animals she's encountered in Canada,
Elk, marmot, orcas, seeing bears in the wild.
just happening upon this tortoise named Pong is proving to be the #1 best by far.
It's incredible. I think it's beautiful. Love it.
Well, Simon Damborg doesn't disagree. He's not surprised to see the tortoise saunter down the street because the prehistoric-looking reptile is his roommate.
I wake up and there's usually a dinosaur sleeping on my kitchen floor, and it would be weird to not have that now.
Pong arrived in Simon's life after the tortoise outgrew his friend's place and required somewhere to recuperate after surgery.
And so, yeah, it was a temporary rescue 3.5 years ago.
It stopped being temporary when the process of rehabilitating the reptile created a permanent place for Pong in Simon's heart.
My heart is just jumping.
For Maria, seeing Pong is like love at first sight.
I feel, oh my God, it's so beautiful feeling. Look at that.
Whether he's sauntering down the sidewalk for his daily dose of exercise or watching others work out at the gym Simon and his partner own, Pong seems to always be lifting people's spirits.
That's wild, man. Just the amount of joy that it brought people. I mean, they'd walk with us for hours just to watch his little leggies mosey down the street.
So, Simon started sharing images of Pong's life in and out of their apartment on social media, showcasing the diaper he wears to work, how he's learned to open the fridge to get a healthy snack, and by speeding up the video, illustrating how the tortoise likes to stay as close to his family members as he can.
Hope that the joy that people get from seeing him, kind of like a pay it forward, that they go out of their way to do something to help bring joy to some other people.
A joy that's set to spread to the other side of the world, albeit at a tortoise pace, when Jan starts showing her photos of Pong to friends and family in Australia.
It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Vancouver.
And that's it for us this evening. Be sure to tune in to CTV News Channel for breaking news as it happens. For Heather Butts and all of us here at CTV National News, I'm Todd Vanderheyden. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your night.